All right, let's do Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 110. Let's talk about slot cars. I don't really have any show and tell, but I have a topic idea for maybe later. But as we normally start off with show and tell, raise those virtual hands and get your show and tell ready, and we'll make sure we get to you. And then we'll do Club Corner. And John, did you see any new faces that we need to introduce? Okay, me neither. And if you're not using a camera and you want to talk about your slot car history, feel free to just chime in, and we'll make sure we listen to you. And don't be afraid to turn on your camera. You're amongst friends, and like appearing older gentlemen. Anywho, you resemble that remark. All right, Jeremy's got his virtual hand up. Go ahead, Jeremy.
One of the guys in one of our clubs retired, so I picked up these. They're in a terrible paint color, but this one is a blue, yellow, red.
Yeah, that's not terrible.
I don't know what the chassis is. I don't know if that's scratch built or what. They told me to buy these two from him because he was selling them all, and these are, I guess, the harder ones for the club members to find. Now, this one is, again, in that same terrible color.
Terrible.
And this one is an International 32. I was just wondering if any of you guys knew much about these chassis. Like, I know that they were commercial chassis at one time, but just for tuning purposes, is it better to have the axle in the front, middle, back, or I'm just looking for like any tips on tuning these before I start taking it apart, cleaning it up.
The axle position is really there to adapt to various different wheelbases of bodies. So you set it according to the wheelbase of the body that you have.
Do you want that slop in here, or do I want to damper that?
You could start with the slop in it, and then you can maybe try later on to get rid of some of that by putting a piece of tape across the bottom.
Okay.
What kind of tires they got on the back?
Well, they have foam tires on here, but they've been sitting for like 5 years. And the guys in our club, they do that silicone treating over them. And I was just wondering also, that's another question. Is it better just to buy like a new silicone tire, or should I do what they do and put silicone over this foam?
I would do what they do and put silicone over the foam, because that gives you a very specific kind of handling, and maybe then you're racing against them, use the same kind of process.
I have a question on that. I've done that to some of mine. They call them spongies or something like that now. But you don't. The tires aren't true when they're not true when you put the little coating on them. I mean,
there's an easy way to do that. If you're doing, we do this in HO a lot for silicones coated sponge tires. The sponge obviously has to be true. Then you just glob all the silicone on it. You chuck the axle, chuck the wheel with an axle and a Dremel, hit the Dremel for about a second, and it spins it all off and it's round.
Oh, you're kidding.
Well, that's the way we do HO tires. They're very precise.
Do that in the living room too. Your wife will appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do it in some kind of a container. So
put a cup over the side of it.
That's what I do with my front tires with nail polish. I coat it with nail polish, put them in a Dremel, spin it in a cup. You got to use a cup.
Yeah.
And for about a second, just till the Dremel spins up to high speed and let go, and then it's perfectly round. So that's quite easy to do.
You might have to wear a cup if you're not sure that everything is properly connected in the Dremel too.
Yeah. Just use the same cup you use for corner marshalling.
Do those sponge tires, can you true them just like with any tire truer? Yes. I mean, the sandpaper will grind that off to a true? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would do that on those just to take the skin off, the old oxidized foam on the outside.
Okay.
Take that down a little bit just to get to better foam underneath, because the silicone the silicone that you use to coat them will hold to the fresh sponge a lot better. The other chassis, the non
that one.
Yeah, the other one was that one. That's a scratch build.
Okay.
Because the center section comes from
Sprints Plus. Sprints Plus.
Yeah, something like
Plus.
that.
Okay.
And then the side pans have been cut down from an old Champion Group 20 frame by the looks of it.
I knew I came to the right place for this information. Also, do I want the other one has foam tires on the front, and this one's got like little washer, almost like rubber
Little O-ring.
washers.
Yeah.
Are those better than?
Yes.
Okay, and then also, should I coat these with nail polish like I do?
You won't need to on an O-ring tire, no.
You won't. Okay, perfect. I got enough information to get started. Thank you, guys.
And just to go back to the tires for just a second, the
Yeah.
reason they do the silicone sponge is if you had a pure silicone tire, it's kind of hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the sponge gives you the resiliency or the softness of the sponge with the silicone coating for the silicone grip on that particular surface.
So what does the nail polish do, Jeremy?
So your tires don't, when they hit the track, the rubber will tend to grip on one side in a corner. I mean, Dennis would probably explain it better, but if the nail polish lets it slide through the corner without getting any chatter.
I see. Okay.
Particularly when the front tires are supporting weight of the car and when they're on a solid axle, then coating them allows them to turn through a turn without fighting with each other. You're just reducing the friction on the not so much the rolling friction as the side to side.
Yeah, when the car rolls over, that front tire kind of grabs, and if it's got traction, then it kind of kicks the back end out. If it doesn't have traction, it just kind of slides.
Yeah.
And Dennis, I had to take all my nail polish off for tomorrow night.
Yeah.
That's something
Are
that
you coming down for tomorrow?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
John, the nail polish thing is pretty commonly done for the toy cars, because like Dennis mentioned, the front tires are pretty much always touching, and they usually use the same compound on the fronts as they do on the backs, which is relatively high grip, and so coating them will prevent all kinds of weird driving issues that you might not realize are because the front wheels are touching and fighting each other to spin around the turn. And
Yeah, it can be a
Sometimes you get
noticeable
lot of
difference.
chatter that way too.
it can make a huge difference. Yeah. I prefer super glue because it dries faster and it's easier to chew. But nail polish works. I mean, as long as the outside surface is basically hard and zero grip. I mean, even zero grip tires have a little bit of grip, but super glue or nail polish will make them just slide on the track.
Is there a particular
Super,
color you
super
like?
glue is easier. Super glue is better in my opinion, like Greg just said, but I think nail polish is easier because you don't have to true it. You can just throw it in chuck it in the Dremel and spin it.
Yeah. What were you gonna ask, John?
I said, is there a particular color in the nail polish you like?
I just use like a clear.
Yeah.
It's a
That way
clear
they
coat
use
that women put to protect their nails, and then you just, like they said, you put it in a Dremel, a chuck, spin it up in a cup, and it just flings all the excess off.
They have it in Target in the slot car section.
Yeah, there you go.
Away.
Yeah, I mean, most of the guys I know have a bottle of Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails right next to their lubricant.
It works perfect. That's what I use too.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, there's been quite a bit of recent experimentation and a couple of recent proxy winners who have gone with grippy front tires that have been touching the truck.
Didn't hear you. With what kind?
Grippy, like, yeah, just with some grip.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And they're doing well?
Well, I put some grippy front tires on my Porsche 997 Proxy Series car, and it's doing rather well.
So it's not always going to cause a
Well,
problem.
it's. I mean, you do have to get. I mean, the whole theory is, for most 30-second scale cars on plastic or wood type club tracks, the goal is to get a lot of grip. So with the grippy front tires, as the car slides sideways, there is some lateral grip provided by the front tires. So not for everybody, not for every track, not for everything, but the GT3 Proxy the year before last or last year was won by a car with grippy front tires. So it's not, for anything that when the tires don't touch the front track, it doesn't make any difference. If you've got tons of grip, if you're running with sponge tires that have more grip than you're ever going to need, I mean, you don't need any more in it. It does cause the car to be, it drives a little bit differently. It does twitch around. But if you've got a couple of spare cars and a few sets of tires, it's not a bad idea to experiment.
Yeah, and especially, in those situations, those cars are, generally speaking, highly tuned, right? And so the wheels are probably barely touching if they're touching at all, usually for a rule requirement, they're barely touching. And so as it goes around the turn and the outside takes the weight, then the inside isn't going to touch at all. And so you don't get that fight between the two sides on a solid axle, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some things you want to do. I found that when I've tried that, independently rotating front wheels again help out there, so there's no interference there. But most of the cars are, for a 32nd scale car on hard tires, I find it hard being rubber, silicone, urethane. I would always recommend having them touching the track.
Yeah.
My last show and tell item is I picked these up. These are Garth's inserts for his plastic hubs. So they are available.
And you're going to start churning out some unique plastic printable wheel ideas.
No, I'm going to grab some old Pro Slot wheels that I had that are plastic and kind of like the insides were warped.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can fix a couple of those. Cool. But then I'll move to tires, wheels.
Interesting. Are those, do they just push in, or are you gluing them in, or is there any kind of mechanical keying or
Both.
Yeah, Garth can probably explain it if he's
you want to talk about your inserts, Garth?
You're muted.
Yeah, they're interference fit, Dennis. Okay, but I do glue them in as well.
okay? So there's nothing else.
There's the barrel part of the thing that slides into the wheel are 0.127. So a 2000s over a reamed hole. You ream the hole at an eighth. Okay.
Okay. That sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's cylindrical and there's no key or anything to it, so it's just whatever the fit and glue you use. So far, it looks, I know obviously Garth has been doing a lot of experimentation. Al, have you experimented with them yet? Garth, didn't somebody else has experimented with the inserts at this point?
Me.
Oh, okay, Mike. Yeah. So, and you've had good experience with them too so far?
Yeah. Yeah, and plus, one thing I like about it, I don't always like to glue my tires because I hate the mess if I take them off.
Yeah.
And the plastic is grainy enough that it holds the tires better. So I'm looking forward to getting some of the ones that we were thinking about with the NSR style air wheels, the center section being open.
The Black Widow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is. Hey, Mike, tell them what plastic yours are.
Now you want me to remember.
You either have
you're supposed to,
ABS or
supposed to actually be part of the test, but you kind of falling on your face, buddy.
Yeah, well,
they're ABS. Why don't you show them? Can you show them?
I've got them on the car. Let me find the car for a second here. So
there was some discussion on the 143rd Zoom chat, which this kind of originated on. The point of them is not to replace. I mean, I guess there's multiple points, obviously, but one of the points is, yeah, you can use them to repair existing injection molded wheels that are wobbly or cracked or whatever. But the idea is for people to be able to easily experiment with printing their own plastic wheels and having a secure method to hold it to the axle rather than relying on the accuracy of the hole in the wheel.
What happened to the front? How come they're not on the front?
Because I hadn't gotten around to it yet.
Oh.
So anyway, they are on the rear, and they will be on the front soon. But yeah, they work really well. They were really true right out of the box. In fact, I could not measure any measurable difference with the dial gauge at all. There was insignificant. And
They just press it.
yes, but they need to be supported when you press them. And if you use a drill press or something like that, I didn't press them in. They were already gotten that way when I got them. So I didn't do it. Garth did it. So
You will
but
be
they
doing
worked
it,
really
but-
well, and they were quite true. And even the ones that the plastic ones that are just have a hole in them are quite true to start out with.
Yeah, those are for axles to go straight in.
Right.
Well, for my club, we have some the classes that you have to use the stock rims, and they're plastic. And once they go bad, you can't get them back. And like I said, you can't go buy pro slot wheels right now. So I think this will be a good way to test and see if it's workable.
Garth, were you going to talk about the development of the tools?
Yeah, but let Brian talk. Okay. 'Cause
Oh,
Brian-
okay. Brian, you've got your hand up. You want to do your show and tell?
Sure. I just got a quick little update on the hot rod project for you guys. Let's see. And just get a little, you guys see that okay?
Ooh, wow.
Nice.
We did get a little paint on it. Now this is the taller version. I did that one first, but
I
That
like
looks really cool.
that's a cool combination there, Red.
That's very nice.
well, that's how that one came out. The other one I'm doing it in a little different color scheme, and I'm gonna do a little bit different. I think I'm gonna do the slabs on the sides a single color and then the top a separate color. So kind of like I did, but I figure extending the white all the way back down the other side.
Don't let Jules see that.
So everything on here that could be printed was the guide, the chassis, the body, and the wheels are all 3D printed. So,
Nice.
and
That is
the
really
color
cool.
actually matched the red pretty well.
Yeah, love them.
Look at the paint job on that.
Yeah,
It's not
that's
perfect.
very nicely done.
There's some waves in there
Yeah.
and some pits. And I mean, I do okay with the color. I struggle with the clears. It's where I'm at that, okay, that looks good. That looks good. Well, wait a minute. Let me do one more. Oh, shit, there's a run. You know, so then I spend time wet sanding those out and everything else. So I've just learned that I need to shoot a lot of clear and work my way back down. So
Now,
got
Greg will give you more airtime if you make the next one blue and yellow.
Yeah, we'll just lock the screen on whatever blue and yellow car is.
But you're limited to 52 minutes.
Yeah, can't break the record. All right, thanks for showing that off, Brian.
Thank you guys.
Anybody else got any additional questions for Brian before we move on? All right, so Garth, take it away.
Yeah, okay. I got a little show and tell of the wheel. Figure it out here.
I assume you're gonna do a screen share?
Yeah. You know what? Why don't you go to Mike, because I'm having a little trouble.
All right, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, well, I don't have show and tell, but sticking to the question of wheels, I read something late last night that Tamar on the forum said that he is trying making a center rib by cutting off one of the Scale Auto tires that have worn down too much because he's used it, and making a center rib and then putting a tire over that so that you have a center rib that has that's glued in the center, and yet it retains that. So you have a little bit of, it's like the replacement foam for an air hub, only it's glued on instead of metal in between. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't have any worn down enough yet, so I'm not going to try it. But
Hey,
Go race
Michael,
on some Ninko somewhere and you'll be fine.
there was a guy in our club that took rubber cement and put it over the vacant area in the wheel and let it dry. So it was dry, it wasn't wet. Then he put his tires over that, so it acted like a rubber holding, and he had great success with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like having the foam insert slightly
Exactly.
proud of it. And what he did is he ground it to a certain spec and then put the tire over the top of that and figured it would have more like a radial tire and move with it just a little bit. So I don't know. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I thought it was
Yeah,
clever when he was talking
we've
about
done that, Mike. On our,
Go ahead, John. Oh, did we lose him? Your
with the
your, your
Rockingham
signal is
digital
kind
car,
of
the Toyota that we used to. Yeah, with the
So, John, you're cutting out.
yeah, your signal's pretty bad. All right, maybe he'll try back again later. But I saw the same post, and it struck me as similar to what Jim and some of the other guys are doing with putting foam into the air wheels. And yeah, he said he basically just the tires were no good for racing under the rules that he has, and he ground it down to the rib height that he wanted, and then he trimmed off the outside and then put his regular rubber tire over top of that. And I think he said that it worked pretty good, but obviously that's
I don't remember if he had tested it yet.
I would be surprised if it doesn't work fairly well, but
It does work. I've done it. It works well. Yeah.
Does it really?
Oh yeah.
I don't see why
use
not.
You cut the foam so that it looks like a wheel.
Yeah.
And then you put the rubber over the top and through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but
well, what I was thinking, Dennis, was the original tire that was glued previous, and then he just cut the outside edges around and left it proud, and then glued that piece without any ridges in between. There's no aluminum ridges there.
Yeah, the rib itself the rib and the glue are the only things keeping the tire on.
Yeah,
right.
Sorry, I missed the start of this because I got up and moved away.
So the Scale Auto foam pre-glued foam from Scale Auto. He uses those for some of his racing, and when they're down too far to be good for that purpose,
then you cut the foam so that it looks like so that it has the profile of a regular solid wheel.
Yeah.
Meaning you cut the outsides down and you leave a piece in the middle that's about 1.25 millimeters higher and has and 4.5 or 5 millimeters wide. And then you put your rubber tire over the top of that, glue it down and true it the same way as you normally would. So instead of having aluminum ridges that are holding the tire in place, you've just got the foam that's holding the tire in place. And I've done it I didn't use the Scale Auto wheels. I've used JK and other 1/24 scale wheels, just cut down to the right width. And it works great.
I've never gotten a Scale Auto foamy to wear down so much I couldn't use it anymore before the adhesive decided to let go and the whole tire just came right off anyways.
Yeah, well, that's because of Alan's insistence on treating it with that bloody stick of whatever it is that he sloshes on everybody's tires before they start every race.
They get a lot grippier when you do that.
Yeah, at the expense of the glue.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he does it, so you have to buy new tires.
I've basically sworn off them because there's no way that the guys in the club aren't going to use that tire stuff to get the grip they want, and so you have to use it in order to be competitive.
Okay.
And by halfway through the series or by the end, if you're lucky, at least for me, the tires just come off and I'm all pissed off because I don't want to have to replace the whole dang thing. So I'd rather just run regular rubber from now on rather than those. Next time they nominate a series with Scale Auto foams, I'm just going to say, let's do regular rubber. Anywho, that's just my pet peeve. Garth, you want to give it another try?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay.
Guys got that? Can you see that?
Yep, we see your PETG, ABS, and PLA wheels.
Okay, this is just some examples of the wheels that I'm using with the inserts in them. Okay, these are all wheels that Greg has printed for me. Okay, but keep in mind that the whole thing is about, anybody can print any wheel they want and then put the inserts in them and have the best of both worlds. Okay, so I got a few photos to go along with this. There's the inserts, and these are being produced by Steve at Ranch Design, and I'll put his email address in the chat. He's got a new email address that you could send to him. Okay, there's a couple of these are installed on a PLA, or I'm sorry, PETG wheels. Okay, that's the hub as it sits through the front, and we made a few changes too. One of the changes was we cut the thing off so it's just a little bit underneath the hub distance. Okay, if you look close at this is just slightly underneath the plastic part. Okay, it worked out really well. That's one on just a regular PLA wheel. Again, you can see the insert. There's the axle and there's the insert. That's the back of it. There's another one, another PLA wheel. Back of it with the hub on there.
Garth, I know Wayne isn't here, but how much do they weigh?
They're super light. Actually, the one we designed for Wayne is 0.39, and with an insert, it's 0.62. So he's got nothing to complain about. And
those wheels, as they sit, are just under a gram.
Garth, is there a reason for one kind of plastic over the other?
At this point, they all seem to perform pretty well. Okay. My preference right now, and these are the 3 test cars. Okay. And they're all the same motors, the same wheels. They got inserts in them, just different wheels going on them, and I'm torture testing them. But right now, today, it's ABS I like the best, but they're all really quite good. Okay. It's all about how they're printed and the methodology at which you have to ream the hole. Okay, that's the real key to that. Okay, is how you ream the hole. I'm going to try one more share here. This one might be a little tougher. This is the
and the main reason I just kind of decided to send Garth different materials so that he could experiment and see if it mattered. So I printed it in materials that I had on hand and sent those to him. And yes. I'm guessing that one of the reasons that you like ABS is just that it's easier to work with, because PLA has such a low glass transition temperature that pretty much anytime you try to do anything to it, it starts to veer towards melting.
Yeah, yeah. The ABS reams a little easier. Okay, but they're through the testing process of this. We've come up with this is basically me and the guys that are involved in it, which are going to be Mike on the West Coast and Kevin in the UK, and hopefully Alan in Minnesota, if I can bamboozle him into the test part of it. But we've learned a few things about, how to do it and how to ream the holes. And this is an instruction sheet that Ranch Design is sending out with the inserts. And it just gives you a few ideas on, the left side of it just tells you, hey, do this on your prints. Okay, and then this is just an easy, quick, fast way of inserting them into the printed wheel. Okay, and there also is some other products that Steve is working on that can also be used in a drill press too for pressing it in, but it's a pretty simple operation, and it's just takes advantage of the axle pressing it in. Okay, and it keeps the the thing real true. And so this, like I said, this isn't just a quick, fast instruction sheet that we're sending with the inserts. And also one other little ditty, I'm working on a methodology / fixture thing that for reaming the holes out that uses a collet fixture, okay, which is kind of pricey, but it's as good as using a lathe. For guys that have a lathe like Dennis, not mentioning any names, they can just ream right on the lathe and get a really nice concentric hole. So
yeah, and with the drill press, you're basically doing what they do in the factory, when they do press on wheels. The axle goes in the machine, the wheel sits there, and then they go chunk, and then they flip it around and do the other wheel chunk. You're basically
and because you're taking advantage of using the axle as your guide, it makes it sort, most it's kind of easy to get your hands on a small little, any drill press will work, you know what I mean? And we're Steve from Ranch is making a little bottom fixture, what we call a press guide to push down into for the axle to push down into, but you don't really need that. I got a wood block that's got a wood dowel in it, and that I rigged up, and it works just as well. So, you can do it low cost or no cost, so.
What's the ID bore of the inserts, Garth?
The ID bore of the insert is same as slot.it, 3/32. Okay.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Same as the listed internal bore diameter.
Yeah, and the grub screw on the hub of the insert is an M2, like a slot.it.
Yeah.
So basically, you were aiming towards slotted compatibility.
Yeah, pretty much. But Jeremy came up with hey, I'm going to put them in, try to save old plastic wheels with the idea. So the idea was just to, I was unhappy. It really came from being unhappy with the lack of inexpensive metal wheels out there. Okay, and I just started goofing around with it, and so. And I learned a little bit, but the main idea is that everybody can do it. Okay, if you got the inserts, there is one little caveat about the insert. Okay, the insert sleeve or barrel, okay, part that fits into the your 3D printed wheel is designed with such a small wall thickness. Okay, because I didn't want to make a big giant honky ass thing that fit inside the wheel. I wanted something that was really, really lightweight. And so the pressing process, okay, as it presses in is really important that you're not a gorilla doing it. You got to use a little, and the insert is designed so it's got a little bit of a lead on it so that it fits into the wheel, as good as it can. And but what happens is that, even though the wall thickness of the barrel is very small, okay, once it fits into the plastic housing, okay, all of a sudden it takes on a new life, because the whole center of the wheel is two materials bonded together instead of one. So it's proven to be pretty damn strong. So far.
And it's a fun way for people with 3D printers.
Yeah.
If you have a 3D printer, you're a hop, skip, and a jump away from designing your own wheels. So if
Yep.
it's super easy,
Yep.
I could probably do a live tutorial right now in less than 5 minutes with how easy it is to design the wheels.
Yeah, and right at this moment, everybody, it would be, the more people trying it, the more information that we're going to get out of it.
Yeah, the more feedback you get, the better things the product will improve, and the methodology will improve. Yeah. So if you're interested in that stuff, Alan posted a link, so I'll put it in the description below, to the 143rd slot car pro board, and that's where Steve is posting product listings and things, so you can go there to get more information. And Garth, you said you were going to drop Steve's email in there for us.
Yeah, I will.
So make sure if you're interested in playing around with that, give Steve an email or go to the pro board and get more information, ask for more information, join the pro board, contribute, learn, all that stuff. Anything else, Garth?
Nope.
Awesome. And Mr. Sampson has his hand up.
All right, I had my video off because I'm struggling a little with bandwidth today. Let me see if this will work. Hold on a moment. I want the other camera. I want that camera.
I want that now.
Yep, there we go. Okay. This is a car for a friend of mine. Sorry, it's wet here. I've been wet sanding one of those bloody Area 71 bodies. All right, so this is a friend of mine, for a friend of mine who actually owns one of these Saabs. This is a 1/24th scale. The body is basically a resin or a fiber reinforced resin made by a fellow in Denmark. And so this friend of mine got it and asked me to build a frame for it. So underneath this is a frame, which of course in true Saab tradition has to be front wheel drive.
Is that for Eddie Shore, Dennis?
Yeah, it's for Eddie.
Nice.
Oh yeah, you guys know Eddie because he's been on the call before.
Yep.
So it's front wheel drive. Underneath this angled plate at the front here, or on top of it, is a Hawk Retro, JK Retro Hawk motor driving through 1050 gear ratio on a set of front wheels that I made up, and so that's what it looks like. Actually, it runs pretty well. I just had it here so that I could fix up a little bit of clearance issues that we've had.
Dennis, I got just a quick suggestion.
Yeah.
Don't coat the front tires.
No, probably not.
And also don't go the back tires.
No. The rear tires are the same compound as the fronts in order to get some traction. We've actually run it, and it runs pretty well. The only problem, of course, is as soon as if you leave the slot, as you have absolutely no brakes, because it picks the front tires off the track and the rears are independently rotating with nothing to stop the car proceeding at whatever pace it was doing into the nearest immovable object.
Is
the guide sprung, or are you just setting it properly so it works right?
No, the guide is just set properly. There's no springing on it. No.
It's awesome for a Saab.
Well, in true Saab fashion, shouldn't the guide be like on the right-hand side of the car? For no reason.
I think we're losing Dennis.
Yeah, we lost him.
Yeah, he's gone. Okay, so that was pretty cool. And Jim threw his hand up. Go ahead, Jim.
I have a club corner if it's okay.
Oh, Dennis, are you trying to talk? Because you're muted. I see that you came back. You cut out on us. I'm going to ask him to unmute himself. Maybe he'll see that. There we go.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just reaching for a screwdriver. So let me take the body off.
Does that body got a big dent in the fender?
Oh.
Well, then it's not realistic.
Well, it doesn't go unless it's on its roof.
All right, so there you go. That's the chassis from up top. The guide, access to the guide nut and so on was difficult, so I had to actually file a little groove into the the tube at the front so that there's space for the tool to get down to tighten the nut. And of course, I've got the leads right down the middle like that, just so that it does provide a little bit of springiness. Because it's a little difficult. You can't do the normal systems, but yeah, there it is. The pans are sprung slightly, so they lift at the back a little. And tuning here would involve taking a little bit of lead wire insulation and actually sliding the lead wire insulation over those two little pieces of piano wire there. And that would dampen the vertical movement.
Dennis, have you tried it on the track yet?
Oh yeah, it runs really nice. He hasn't tried it with the body on. He had it on the track with just the chassis, but it ran pretty good. The first time he set it up, he put spacers under the guide, and of course he put it on the track, and it just sat there and went wee wee wee. I had to realize that you can't put spacers under the guide for this one. And of course, the weird part about it is that the rules for that class mandate 50 thousandths clearance under the rear and allow you down to 15 thousandths under the front, right? But if you set the car up for 15 thousandths under the front, your tire life is going to be very, very, very limited. So we had to basically set it for 50 thousandths clearance under the whole thing, so that at least he can get a little bit of use out of his tires.
So will it be driving against other front drive slot cars as well?
This is more for just for fun and you know, for running around the track now and then. It's not for competition.
It seems like your geometry would be just reversed for this, as it would be for a rear drive car.
How do you mean geometry?
Well, like I got to remember. Okay, so the rear of this car wants to be loose, where on the other kind of car, the front wants to be a little more mobile. Is that correct?
No, normally your weight is 640, and now it's reverse.
Right.
Yeah. I put a big piece of brass under the back, as you can see, because I still want to get a little bit of traction out of those wheels at the back, and so far it feels pretty good.
Hey, Dennis.
Yeah.
Russ, when you're running that car on the track, I mean, what ballpark, what kind of times are you getting out of that as compared with something store-bought with the same type motor, rear drive?
Difficult to tell, but I think that if you were to take that car, if you were to build a rear drive version of this car under the same body, meaning with the same limitations of length and width and height, that the rear drive car will probably be about the same speed, but easier to drive.
Oh,
because I think this one, you know, you're always going to have to be worrying about the lack of brakes if you come out and damage.
Yeah.
But in general, I don't know. It didn't seem, from the little bit that Eddie drove it, it didn't seem that there was any major problem with handling.
that's
Anyway.
cool. It's really neat.
All right, so that's me for today. So
All right.
I will
Thanks,
cut
Dennis.
that.
And Jim is ready to do his club corner. Does anybody else have any show and tell or any questions for previous show and tells before we move on?
Well, now that you're asking, Dennis might be able to add to what I'm going to say, but I'm looking forward to, I ordered a NSR chassis flattener from Electric Dreams. I pre-ordered it. And it looks really good. From what I can see in the videos I've seen, it looks awesome. I'll let Dennis talk a little about it.
I pre-ordered one as well. I've actually pre-ordered mine yesterday.
I have not seen it yet, so I don't know.
I thought you did a a special on it. It was through Electric Dreams.
No.
Anyway, it's
He did the same thing I did. He did the Huddy Buddy video.
yeah. Okay, so it's about, it looks to be about 2 inches tall, probably 10 inches long, 8 inches wide, maybe 6. The chassis, you set the chassis on it. It comes with a wall wart power pack, plug it in, put your chassis on this plate. It heats up to the correct temperature to straighten the chassis.
Yep.
Oh, the NSR.
It's held down by magnets, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I pre-ordered mine yesterday.
That's it right there. Woo.
Lots of discussion on this on slot.
I've ordered one as well.
Of course you did. We knew you
Of course, and in different colors. Unfortunately, I ordered 2. I don't know why.
I think Tony ordered 2.
Yeah, the bottoms are 3D printed, and then the top is some kind of machined steel plate or something like that.
So anyhow, I'm excited to get mine. That it's a pre-order deal. I don't know if anybody already has them.
Yeah, I have one.
How do you like it?
I made it from an electric cooker.
He did his homemade version. He doesn't have the NSR one.
Ah, okay.
Because a metal plate on a cooker does the same.
Right.
I saw the video of that.
Well, my question is, once you get it all set up and turn the heat on, how long is it going to take for it to reach its temperature to have an effect on the chassis?
I don't know, but it is.
Hopefully, the longer the better.
Yeah,
I would think.
I believe it's 12 hours.
Take it off the plate and run it under cold water.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
Did someone say 12 hours?
It'll crack.
Yeah, I think Mr. Underwood saw it in person, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw it at the Slot Festival a couple of weeks ago. I believe there's an A and an M switch. A is for automatic, which basically you put your chassis on it, put all your magnets on it, you flick it on. I think it says it's up to 12 hours. I'm sure I read that. I think there's a link to
it's 12 hours cool down.
Right.
Yeah.
It's on the NSR video on YouTube, basically how to use it.
Yeah. As I say, like Henry's got, he's got, looking up, he's got that little cooker. I've just got a steel plate and a load of old magnets I take out on the cars. I bought it in what I did a chassis the other day. First time, perfect. So I think personally, I think it's a waste of time. Piece of steel, boiling water, oven, Pyrex dish or a roasting dish. But as I say, it's everyone's got an opinion on everything, haven't they? So I think it's a waste of time, personally. But
for money, waste of money.
It's $100.
Yeah.
So
There shall be a market for it.
Of course, people will buy it.
Yeah,
I hope it works out well. If you are interested and you haven't bought one, have a look at the video. You would think when you do a video, you would want to get for your audience the best result you could in the video to attract people. The chassis in the video sits nice and flat on the plate when it's got the magnets on it. When the magnets are taken off, the front end bounces right back up. So I'm not saying anything other than the fact that I have no issues and have never had an issue with hot water and a plate and stick it in the oven and stuff like that, and it works extremely well. The automatic button, does it know what chassis plate you're putting on and what it's made of and how thick it is and like what? If it does for $100, it's a great buy. It's a genius little thing. I suspect it doesn't know.
It's not magic.
Well, it's probably assuming the NSR chassis.
There's probably quite a few videos floating around. The video I seen, they showed it before and after while it's sitting there. Of course, you don't see the amount of time that goes, but when it was done, they took a little, almost like a ballpoint pen, and were touching all around. It was flat. So we'll see. I'll try. I'll give you guys an update. Woohoo!
I'm sure we'll hear all about the NSR chassis flattener from Tony and Dewan and Russell and whoever else got suckered into that. I'm just kidding. It looks like it looks like it's convenient, right? It's a compact tool that does the thing that is doable but not as convenient, right? You're paying for the convenient tool sitting on your thing, and you just do your stuff right there, flip a switch.
It's convenient for me because my office, my workshop is upstairs in my little room. Saves me walking downstairs, boiling the kettle, switching the auger on.
Yep, all that stuff. Not to mention having to work around, most people only have one oven in their home. You have to work around any need of the oven. And
it saves you from having to explain to your wife why you're using her Pyrex dishes.
Sure.
And putting plastic in the oven.
No, I don't bother with that part of it. Quite honestly, I just pour the boiling water. I boil a kettle. I pour the water over the chassis in the Pyrex dish, and I leave it. And when the water's cold, then I take the chassis out, and bang, done. I don't. When I do it, it takes me just an hour maybe.
Yeah, you don't do the cool down.
Yeah.
So basically, NSR just basically created a panini press. That's it.
Pretty much.
Have you ever seen a turkey that's been in an oven 6 hours? Neither have I, but I don't want to either.
Depends on the size of the turkey, doesn't it?
Not that has anything to do with your chassis sitting in your oven for 6 hours.
Hopefully it hasn't got fuses, Tony. Sorry?
Yeah.
Hopefully it hasn't got fuses.
You'll blow them.
And it has, good.
It's eternal.
I'll throw out a couple of tips for people who are not familiar with the whole boiling, the boiling method. Go look it up. It's not hard to find. Slot It used to have an instruction sheet on it, but the most important points to remember are support anything that shouldn't go down, because it will go down.
Oh, loads of fuses.
Tony's got his fuses ready to go. After your water is boiling, take it off the heat and give it a minute or two. You don't want to pour it boiling. And don't pour it right on the chassis. Pour it into the dish so that the chassis then gets submerged by hot water. Don't pour the mostly boiling water right on the chassis. And then Dennis says, just standard room temperature cool down is fine. Other people recommend putting it in an oven that's hot, but you turned it off so it cools down over a longer period of time. Your mileage may vary. But yeah.
And the sad reality with flattening any piece of plastic in the oven or on an iron or however when you do it, plastic's got a lot of memory, so you will find on a lot of chassis that you'll take it out and it's nice and flat. Go back and look at it in a couple of weeks. It's certainly better than it was, but they don't stay flat forever.
Yeah. That's when we need Jeremy's weight thing.
Well, when I first seen that, I grabbed a heating element and I thought, I could probably build that. But then I thought, by the price and time, I was like, $99. It's probably just easier just to buy that one, because $99 is like my price point for a tool where I go, yeah, it's probably worth it than spend 12 hours developing software to make sure the thermistor doesn't go overheat. And
yeah, because it's always got some kind of timer. It's got thermostats and timers, so it gets to a temperature, and then if it's got a slow cool down, it's got to maintain that temperature, and then maintain a lower temperature, and then maintain a lower temperature, and so on for 12 hours or however the automatic thing works. But I will say to the internet, if you are an expert in plastic injection molding and cooling, and you know of a technology that can absolutely guarantee that any chassis that pops out of your machine is going to be absolutely perfectly flat, that will make any slot racer jump for joy, then you're about to make $1 million, billion, bajillion, cajillion dollars by starting your own injection molding company and blowing every other injection molding company out of the water, because obviously that technology is not being used today in spite of your desires to have a perfectly flat chassis right out of the box. So get to it, all you guys out there who know better.
Well, the other thing worth noting is that, I mean, most guys run chassis with motor pods, and most guys have chassis that the motor pod has some movement in it. Right. And most guys run chassis with adjustable front axle blocks. So if there is a minor twist in any chassis, it can be completely taken out by the adjustment of the front axle.
And usually they run the body slightly loose, so that,
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you can always go around and, you know, test fit the body and take a thou or two off of one or two offending body posts to get the thing. So, you know, there's different ways around it. And, you know, at the end of the day, for the pirate, you can go to the dollar store, and for $100 you can buy a lot of Pyrex dishes, a lot of Pyrex dishes.
And some old saw blades.
And that's why in HO cars, we have front tires in 2000s increments. You may have a front tire on the left that's 4,000s taller than the tire on the right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because those, we boil those in a jig and they come out flat. And then 2 months later, they're yeah, that's the jig.
Yep.
A couple of months later, they've got the same bend in them. So
right.
That's the HO jig that you make sure everything is flat with.
Yeah, you put the axle, the chassis goes in there, and you put the axles through those long axles. Those are real axles. They're the same size as axles. You screw it down so that forces the chassis flat. Because I mean, these are stiff. You couldn't do this with magnets. So you force the chassis flat, put it in a pan, boil water, pour the water over it, let it sit overnight, and it's better.
Well, I just hope that everybody who's ordered one enjoys it. That's all I can say.
I'm having one of those machined now for the larger scales through a local guy here that will also have a variable wheelbase. That's a fixed wheelbase for HO.
Yeah, that's for a specific chassis.
Yeah.
T-Jets.
Well, I'm having one made larger with, like I said, with a variable wheelbase.
Cool beans.
For 132nds?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and all that being said, you know what Chris said about changing the ride height, the tire heights or the axle heights and all this stuff. I've had pretty good success in slot car racing in 30-second scale. I've never flattened a chassis. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but I've never done it.
Yeah, if you got one way out of whack that shouldn't have even passed through QC,
it goes
return it and get another one.
The biggest problem that I've had, and the reason, almost the only reason I've ever needed to flatten chassis, is because of the way in which the guide sits on the chassis.
Right.
And very often the nose of the guide is pointing down or pointing up, or it's not straight left to right, so that you've got an issue with the more pressure on one braid than the other. And those kind of things you can't adjust out because that's the guide. And so if you don't have a guide problem on a car, well, then fine, then you don't need to, then you can adjust it out. But if you've got a guide problem, you're going to be flattening.
Dennis, did you see those new Slotting Plus guide shims?
No, the new guide shims.
They are not just a washer. They're a flat piece that fits on the top of the guide.
Oh.
So it's a flat plate.
Oh, cool.
You could make those with like a 1 degree angle cut in them.
To compensate for any 1 degree angle.
Well, to give a little kick up to the guide, so it's not, you know, obviously you don't want it like that.
Yeah.
Well, you would be able to do that if you're happy to accept a sloppy fit of the guide post in the hole in the chassis.
Yeah. There's never an easy fix for doing it the right way in the first place.
Hey, you're right.
Yeah, and that's basically what a lot of the discussion is on, at least on Slot Forum, is, you know, why should we have to do this work? Why can't they just kick out a perfect chassis every single time? And plastic just doesn't want to do that.
This is not work. This is a hobby.
Exactly.
And they are toys.
And they are toys. Yeah.
Just run
All right.
magnets. It doesn't make any difference.
All right. I think that horse is dead. Jim, you ready for Club Corner? Henry, did you have a show and tell? Are you ready for Club Corner? You want to talk about the flattener some more? Or?
No, I only have a teaser.
Okay, let me spotlight you here. Oh, you're doing a scale?
I'm not saying anything. I
Okay,
said
no, that's a teaser. A Magnet Marshal competitor. Yep. Awesome. So we'll look forward to additional information about that in the future.
Yes.
And all right, any other show and tells before we move on, Russell?
Question on when you said scale. Remember, I was asking you, Greg, I don't remember who the person was that had the 4-point scale.
That's Jeremy. He's still working on it.
Is he on right now?
He's on, yeah. Jeremy, any progress on that?
No, no, I've got a race coming up this weekend, so I've been focusing all my attention on that. But
yeah, I'm sure once he's got something to talk about, he'll talk about it.
I'll get it out there as soon as I can. Henry might beat me to it. Henry, help me.
What?
Really excited about that, by the way. I would be very interested when you get it completed.
I'd be very interested in completing it. I got to be honest. So it's just,
I mean, as far as purchasing,
it's the hard part right now that I'm on. So
yeah,
I'm working only on 1 point. You're working on 4 points. That's a little bit different.
That's a whole big different kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
Which is why he's not already done. And
I got to run, guys. I will see you next week.
Thanks for coming, Chris.
See you, Chris.
And to speak for Jeremy, he knows how much interest there is in this.
Oh, okay.
When he gets to the point of deciding how things are going to go forward after his R&D is done, I'm sure we will find out about it. And
well,
whether that's going into small production or just sharing everything you need to know about how to produce it yourself.
Yeah, because evidently I like buying stuff that doesn't work, so I'm very interested.
Oh, well, in that case, I got one for you ready.
I was going to say, you can buy the one he's got right now.
I can buy that one. Cool.
All right. Yeah, always looking forward to updates on that project from Jeremy, and I'm sure when he has some, he'll share it with us. So I think we're probably okay to move on to Club Corner. If you have a Club Corner that you want to talk about, again, this is not Club Corner. This is playing with slot cars with more than yourself corner. Friends, family, nascent club, long time club, whatever. If you raced with some buddies and you want to talk about it, now is the time. Jim has had his hand up and waiting patiently to talk about his club. Go for it.
Okay, there we go. This goes back to our Motown racing in Modesto, California. So we had our first race about a month ago. We had, I think, 17 entries at that race. So decided to do it again. And this is the upcoming race in July. So we're still running the 2 classes for now. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But Group C and NSR F1 is what we're running. They're pretty much spec other than changing rear tires and guide and that kind of just normal stuff. We had a great group. The last time I said we had 17 people, 4 of those were from Southern California, so we don't expect them to come up all the time, and they couldn't make it. They had some conflicts with some other races and so forth. So I didn't know what to expect. We ended up having 18 this time. So we picked up 4 or 5 people from the local Modesto group, which is really part of the reason is to get some new people excited about 32nd scale racing on a commercial style track. It's an 8-lane track. We run 6 lanes of it. We had some new people show up. Dennis will probably recognize those guys, Herman James, John Wilbur, who are dedicated 24 scale racers from way back and still racing. I built a couple cars for Herman, and I'm now building a car for John. So we've got some new people interested in this type in this genre of the sport.
I have already had a couple of calls from Herman.
Yeah,
what do I do about
Herman
this?
did
What
okay.
do I do about that? Hey, yeah.
Herman did okay.
What's the website for Electric Dreams?
So we have some
really
people that race at both places, Electric Dreams and Modesto. So it's been a great a great challenge to me to try, it's trying to get people out and really promote this, because being the promoter is a whole different ballgame. This is not the entire Group C grid because I didn't get all the cars out there, but I think we had 17 of them. Results are here. Didn't break the track record. Track record is still 633, but ran a new car for me and was able to win with. I'm bringing that down there tomorrow to try it to Electric Dreams rules. So I had to pull 10 grams of lead out of this car for the Electric Dreams rules that I'm going to try this weekend. The F1 grid, we had 18 cars in F1, some loaner cars. Ian Douglas, who's a HO and a 32nd scale racer, TQ'd and won the race. Hate to say that, but he did. With a beautiful car. We're seeing people start to build cars that, mine is a car that I built, the camel car. It's not the NSR version. It's one that I built and painted. The winning car, Ian, Jaguar, gorgeous car. Herman James finished third with a car I built for him. And you notice he's got nothing on it. There's no driver, there's no markings on it. And we're not going to allow this. However, he just got the car at 10 a.m. the day of the race. The chassis was ready because I built it, but the car wasn't. So I said, just go ahead and put the wings on it and you can run it, no problem. So again, here's our upcoming race. If anybody's in the area, July 23rd. And one of the things that I'm running into is this is fun, but I noticed that at clubs, when we're in garages, things, a little bit of the fun factor is missing because it's more serious racing, which is not a bad thing. So we're looking at new classes, and I've got one figured out, and this has not been announced yet. So this is not 100% a done deal, but I'm pretty sure this will happen. In addition to our slotted Group C and NSR F1, we're going to have to cut a little bit out of the program because we do qualify both of these classes. So it takes, half an hour to qualify 18 drivers. So in addition to this, what we're going to do at the next race is the NSR Abarth Challenge. Like I said, this is tentative, but most likely will happen. It's going to be an IROC style race, 2 cars, one on green, one on orange, I think, whatever the 2 middle lanes are. And it's 24 scale spacing, so we're not going to have a huge problem with people trying to take each other out. But that might even be fun, just to see people go head to head, a 3-lap crash and burn race. And it'd be a 16-person round robin drag race style. You lose, you're done. You win, you move on, and eventually we'll have a winner. So we're going to supply the cars, and it's going to be these NSR Abarths, and I think they're just going to be a blast. So it's kind of my attempt, and talking to some other people, is bringing a little bit of the fun factor back into commercial racing. And if this is a success, this may be our next class at Motown as an actual race class. So we'll see how it goes. So that's it.
Very cool. Those are fun cars to drive.
I'm gonna buy one when I come down there this weekend because you've got them in stock down there at Electric Dreams.
Probably.
And I guess this is Club Corner also, but Electric Dreams tomorrow night. Is it the president or the owner or the CEO or whatever of NSR? I'm not sure of his exact title.
I don't know his exact title either, but he's the son of the founder.
He's the big guy. He's going to be there tomorrow night at Electric Dreams. We're having a semi-invitational Formula One race with NSR F1. And so I'm going down after this chat actually and drive down. And then there's an actual F1 race, their normal monthly F1 race along with Regal Slot on Saturday. So it's going to be race on Saturday, meet the president, practice on Friday, and then race on Sunday, and then for me drive home. So it's going to be another long weekend of toy car racing. So that's it for me.
All right, good stuff. And yeah, of course, I have a Fiat 500 as my daily driver, so had to get the NSR Abarth. Mine's not an Abarth, but had to get one of the NSR ones.
Is it blue and yellow?
Of course, it's blue and yellow.
We need pictures. We'll have to build a Greg Gow NSR Abarth to race.
And I stuck some crappy stickers on it. It's not a very good.
He was talking about your full-size Abarth. Is that blue and yellow? Your full-size Fiat.
My full-size one is only yellow, but I'm always wanting to take it to a wrapping place and have some blue put on it.
Rattle cans work great.
Rattle cans. At this point, I've got one scratch on it, so I might as well just rattle can
If you come out your driveway one morning and it's a rattle can blue and yellow, you'll know who did it.
My wife will probably hate it even more, that it looks even more gaudy than it already does. But yeah, the NSR cars are a lot of fun, and they're very unique cars to drive because they're so short, narrow, and tall, but so much grip and so much power. You pretty much can. It's pretty much got to be just the 500 Abarth and no other cars.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, when I looked at these, I looked on the website and looked at all the specs. They're definitely tall, but the guide to rear axle distance is the same as the Ford GT.
Yeah,
the wheelbase.
The Ford GT is half the height.
Yeah, it's half the height. So
the annoying part is, a long time ago we ran what we were referring to as the NSR Compact series, and so it was a mix of the S2000 and the Clio and the 500, and the Clio and the S2000 blew out the 500. So you were just not in a good position if you were running a 500. So that's why I know.
Yeah, well, it's shorter and smaller.
And taller.
Yeah, are they angle winders or sidewinders?
These are sidewinders. The other ones that Greg was talking about come in different variations, I think.
Yeah. I changed all of mine over to sidewinder because if you have one of those with the angle winder and the 21.5, that thing has just got way too much torque for those cars.
My GT3 car has way too much torque for with the angle winder in it.
Yeah, we would have run all the same motor configurations, so probably the sidewinder.
Yeah, sidewinder. Yeah.
But yeah, fun cars. So I'm sure that'll be a blast of a class. And I like the idea of the single elimination. How many laps is it going to be? For
3
laps. Yeah.
Crash and burn.
3 laps, crash and burn, single elimination. That sounds like a lot of fun. I might have to suggest that to the guys in my club. So yeah, looking forward to hearing more about that. And Big Den is going to represent Tasmania and the others down under. What you got today, Big Den?
Yeah, anyone south of the equator, in my ballpark. Yeah. Just in that regard, I say to Brian that his paint job on his hot rod there passed the 10,000 kilometre test anyway. It looked great for me.
Well, thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
I went early last week and I was watching Greg's piece about their club racing when they had a very, very close racing with equal points and equal heats won and everything like that. And he made the comment about then the ultimate tiebreaker being alphabetical order. From now on, I'll be Aaron Aardvark, so that if I ever tie with anyone, I'll be right at the head of the field after the countback. So for the tiebreak, just referring to a couple of things. Jim's promoting races. He's going in races now. He's doing gags. He told Dennis he shouldn't varnish the front tires on the Saab. I thought, great. I can retire.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're ever not here, we've always got Jim.
Yeah. But I'm a little bit worried about him. He was talking about taking the nail polish off before he went down to Electric Dreams. I was just sort of where he was putting the nail polish on. I'm assuming it was on the front tires and not. Yeah, so that's when you use clear nail polish, for your nails. If you don't want anyone to see that you're doing your nails up.
Yeah, just to be sure, I'm from Sacramento, not San Francisco. It's both Northern California.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Is that a California joke? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I think I get the drift, Jim.
Not one, not two.
Early on, Jeremy had a picture of a little hybrid semi scratch built thing. Those little inline Sprint Plus chassis were a great starting point for back in the 90s when they came out. I used to get them, chop them in half, extend them, and they were great for scale narrow F1s to the starting point, because I wanted to relive my old 60s days of when all the open wheelers were narrow gutted things, which didn't happen in the 90s. They just made them fit a flexi chassis or or the IndyCar bodies. But yeah, they were great. They were a great little thing to buy. So now I'm actually going to do a couple of screen shares, and I'll hit that thing there. And this is as far as my club corner is going to go today, is to show, last week when I was on and did the club corner, I mentioned a couple of new guys coming into the club. In between me being on last week and tonight, or today, he's actually gone out and bought a track that was advertised locally. Nice 3-laner, if you can see that.
Yeah, it looks like a fun track.
Yeah, so we're going to have another tractor racing in the local area in the not too distant future. So just another, I think there's another view of it here somewhere.
I wish all of our new members would come in with those kind of tracks.
And I'll just flick the other view of it. So yeah, I think that's Dave in the background there, you know, putting a car on the track and trying to get it to work. So him and one of our existing racers are, you know, they've sort of been buddies for ages, and probably 30 years, and they're setting it up. And so I'll probably I've been said I'll be welcome when they've got it ready to go. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'll just.
What's your linear footage?
I have no idea, Russ. But the it looks a very long track. But when I asked our current host, KC, or Grumpy as we know him, he said this track is actually shorter than his. At one stage, he and a mate were going to buy this particular track. So I don't know the lap length at all, Russ, but I'm sure that's something I'll find out. And when I do, I'll pass on to everyone.
That's probably the closest I've seen layout to mine.
Yeah. Okay.
It's real close, and I was just curious. Mine sets on 21 by 9 feet. What's your?
Yeah, well, I'll grab all that information, Russ, and I'll pass it on to you and the group in general when I know the details.
Yeah,
but again, looking at the track, it's another product from our Canadian friend, you know, that lives about 50 miles out of Launceston. So he's certainly an influence here in Tasmania, you know, over the years. I'll just unshare that one, and then I'll reshare. If I can find the button there, it is. Where is it? Here it is. Now, can you see a web page there?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've got a gentleman down here in Victoria over the pond from us, you know, over Bass Strait, which is the body of water that separates Tasmania from mainland Australia. He runs a centre called Mr. Slot Car as opposed to MR Slot Car. One of the sidelines of his business is to build these modular tracks, and that's one of the. And yeah, the punchline here is that another of our newer members has bought a modular setup, which I haven't seen yet. It's only 2-lane. I'm trying to get a night free to go around. He lives about 1 kilometre from him, so I've got to be mindful of the travelling, before I go and visit.
It'll take forever.
What are you doing to attract all these quality new members?
Yeah.
What's your
secret formula here?
Yeah. Come along and bring your track, sort of thing. So that's just one of their basic tracks. You can see the red line across the middle. That's where the 2 tables split. Now, our new member has bought a 4-table setup. He can only set up all 4 tables if he opens his garage door or garage door, Greg. You know, I'll throw that one in.
Garage.
The garage or the garage door, depending on where you are. But he can still make a layout out of a 3-table setup because everything is modular. So if I just scroll down a little bit further, you can see the actual additional components that the guy makes. So for instance, you can have a basic layout and put this little curved extension in, or you can put this extension here that's got a bit of a wobble in it. And one of his modules is he even got a lane equalization addition to it, where one car goes further around. So, and you'll probably notice the one here that I'm wobbling around, and that's got a lane, it's a plug-in digital module, so you can turn it into a digital track. So, 2 new tracks to race on, within the foreseeable future.
Does he do 4-lane?
He does 2 lanes and 4 lanes, Russ. I'll just click. Okay. And he actually made some special lockdown tracks when we had the COVID lockdowns, and made folding tracks. They could. You probably won't get the video. The video probably won't work too well with my bandwidth or the. I'll just try. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But he just, you can just fold the track up and set it up on a coffee table. No, it doesn't look like it's going to work. So we'll abandon that. Yeah.
You select.
Okay. And
Big Dan.
Quickly, yes, Henry.
I have another question. You're an Aussie, aren't you?
Oh yeah, well allegedly, yeah, that's right.
The power
Yes,
that's coming out of your wall, it's 250?
Yeah, 250, 240, something like that, yeah.
And you find it necessary to make plugs in your wall that's going to be crossed.
Oh yeah, well, like that.
Do what?
The kind of plug for your he's trying to figure out what kind of power supply to get for Australian customers of his products, right?
Yeah, I had yesterday one from Sydney.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I thought, what the fuck?
You have no idea what kind of power plugs they use.
Yeah.
Tony's showing the UK. Is that it? Is that the UK or the Australian? Do they use the same kind? You're muted, Tony.
Yeah, no, I've gone. Just a minute. I've lost. Yeah.
Because I bought now for America, I bought them for the UK, and now somebody from Australia comes with another plug.
Maybe you can buy one of those universal ones where you snap in, like the customer gets all 3 and they snap in the one they need.
Yeah,
travel one.
Yeah, they make like special little ones. I've seen them on AliExpress.
Yeah, I've seen them also. But this was very new for me. I think Australia, it's a sort of United Kingdom in the past.
How many volts are you running?
I've seen on the internet that you can normally do 230 over there.
But like your products, do they need 5 volts? Do they need 10 volts? Like mine only needed 5 volts, so I just went with USB because everybody has USB.
Yeah, for the Mini Z he could do that, but for the slot car one, you need at least 12 volts or so to run the car at 12 volts.
Well, that's a problem.
The Mini Z could probably run off a USB, but he designed the Mini Z one to have batteries, so that's already taken care of. But yeah, I think the power supply that you sent for mine was automatically switching between 110 and 220. So all I had to do was cut the plug off and wire on a United States.
But I read the information today for travelers. You can use any supply from Europe, and you can put it in the wall if you have the right connection.
Yeah.
So it had to run, but I never seen that sort of wall socket. So that's why I asked for sure.
Yeah, it looks like he dropped off. So when he comes back on, he'll probably show us what an Australian or at least Tasmanian wall socket looks like. If anybody here knows, Google probably knows.
I think it's like Type I is what I'm reading.
Type I is what Australian uses? I don't know.
They have like Type A through I.
Is that the one that's like this?
Yeah, they call it Y, Y or Y. I will find out.
It
All
goes
right.
it goes counterclockwise, but
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, while we wait for Big Den to confirm the exact kind of power plug that's in use in Tasmania, the floor is open. So if you've got anything you want to show, ask, or tell, go ahead, Jeremy.
Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about plastic track versus wood track, because we've kind of had this debate in our club, and there's some wood track snobs. While I enjoy racing on both, either it's not necessarily magnet or non-magnet, but what's more popular in your area? Is it wood tracks exclusively? Is it a mix, or is it plastic? Any thoughts?
For me specifically, the EMSA club has basically 50-50 plastic and wood. And so generally we use a tire that works at least okay on all those surfaces. But I mean, most of the performance tires we talk about in here, like the new G25s work well, the NSR rubber works well, the slotted N22, N18 works well on both kinds of surfaces.
But you don't have the snobs who are like, I don't want to race on plastic. That's
no, but
okay.
But in general, we're the members who have tracks are either planning to move to wood, have already moved to wood, or maybe in the distant future they're thinking eventually they'll move to wood. Because as soon as you race on wood, then it's like, oh, Jesus is awesome, I want this too. But yeah, no, so far nobody's been like, I don't want to race on plastic or vice versa.
And you're racing on plastic, is it painted plastic or is it bare plastic?
All of ours are bare plastic. I was just gonna say, if you have that situation where they're like, we don't even want to race on the plastic track, then maybe bring up the possibility of painting the track with whatever is common for the wood tracks, because then you basically get the same kind of traction on the plastic track. At that point, the only difference would be, the unevenness or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't had that problem. I just had one of the guys in the club was building a track and he was going to do it in plastic, and they talked him out of it. So now we don't get a track, and I'm like, you idiots, what are you doing? So
so
it just seems weird to me that they're. And what's that?
So he decided not to have a track at all if he can't.
Yeah, he just has a small oval he's going to keep, but he was putting together a Carrera, and he's like halfway done, and they talked him out of it, and I just thought that was crazy. And then I look at all the European videos like you guys do 24 hours and here and there, and I'm like, you guys run a lot of plastic too over there. So I don't know. I've never run into it until now that there was actual plastic snobs.
Yeah,
plastic
you're right, Greg. I mean, in ours, both clubs that run up here or two of the clubs that run in the Pacific Northwest are about 50-50. Nobody complains. They just run. It's fun. We get out, we have a good time. And Greg hit it right on the money too. Usually when you run on the wood after plastic, you're like, wow, the wood is much smoother, but fun's fun, and it's a great time running on plastic too.
Yeah, we're all pretty much like, the plastic is what it is. We want to race. It's a fun track to race on. Let's race. I don't care.
And I have to agree with Greg. Oh, sorry. I have to agree with Greg too, that once you paint like a Carrera track, like our painted Carrera track is just great. I mean, it's the next best thing to a routed track.
Oh, cool.
If you wanted to make it yourself difficult, you can drive on a wooden track.
Just say no wood.
Because
I enjoy both, so it doesn't bother me. I mean,
because you have to adjust your car a lot of difference for a plastic track.
Yeah, that might be one of the things.
You want to drive as hard as you see at first, and I drive in the whole country, and now I'm experimenting with Ninko tracks. That's some different cookie. And I wouldn't track at our own club. It's much too difficult. It's a difficult track for anyone who comes there, because every mistake you make on a wooden track, your car is off.
Well, are you talking about non-mag versus mag? When you're running plastic tracks, do you run magnets?
We run half the classes magnet, half the classes no magnet. So the no magnet cars, but you still have to set them up differently. On the wooden tracks, I have a set of cars for my wooden track, and then I have a set of cars for my plastic tracks.
There is a difference in magnet because you can drive a Carrera car with 200 gram of magnets, or you can drive a car with 20 or 30 gram of magnets.
Yeah, see, we're non-magnet groups out here and our classes, and so that's pretty much what we run. So to me, deslotting happens just as easy on plastic as wood, I think. You know, maybe come off a little easier on plastic. I don't know. What do you think, Greg?
You know, generally speaking, if you cook a corner, it doesn't matter what the surface is. So,
yeah.
But I think probably one of the things that I would guess the plastic haters is one of the reasons for disliking plastic is the setup is, like you said, the setup needs to be different. If for best performance, you're doing at least tweaks to your car, or you're having two entirely different cars set up, one for wood and one for plastic, and that could be either prohibitively expensive for some people or too much work for some people, or they just don't want to do it. They want to set up a car and they don't want to have to keep changing their car every time they race on a different track. That would be one reason. And and you can't even say all plastic, right? In EMSA, all of the plastic tracks are Scalextric Sport. We don't have any Carrera tracks. We don't have any Ninco tracks. We don't have any Scale Auto or Polycar tracks yet. So it's either wood with latex paint or Scalextric Sport with no paint. So there's Scalextric Sport rails are flush, so there's not a whole lot of setup differences that you need to do between the two, unless you really want to get into the whole chassis stiffness thing. But in general, the only thing you would need to do is tweak your braids to get better contact from one to the other. So, does your club have, for the plastic tracks in your club, Jeremy, or is there a variety of plastic, or is it all sport? Or
so maybe 15 years ago, we had one Ninco track, two Revell monogram tracks, and one Scalextric track and one wood track. But then as the guys kind of filtered away, moved and whatnot, we got down to two wood tracks and one plastic track now. And it's just, since I've raced on every kind of track now, I enjoy it all. And maybe it's just a thing with the new guys coming in that they get used to these smooth tracks that have been routed. And when they have to jump on a plastic track, maybe they're like, oh, I don't know.
Well, Jeremy, you may want to mention to them that in real racing, like whether it's Formula One or IndyCar, they go from street courses, ovals, real tracks, and they're all really different. So
yeah,
it's actually really close to what real racing is like.
I would think so.
They tune the car for every track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also in the Formula One.
Cars. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious if anybody else ran into this kind of thing, but I mean, maybe not.
Well, different tire compounds for the different track surfaces. Like Greg was saying, if you're not predominantly using one rubber tire on most of the tracks, they're going to rubber up to that anyway. But it's just basic setup changes, Jeremy. That's all you got to do. I personally on plastic like to run a tripod system. So you run on the guide, run on the rears. The fronts are just sort of just off the track, bouncing around a little bit, because of the it's uneven. On a wood track, you want to stabilize the front end, so you get your screws and you adjust it. So it's just fine alterations, like John was just saying. Street tracks different setup to a racing circuit, isn't it? So it's the same principle. It's just setup. That's all it is, and it's possibly a different style of racing. Wood's more lift and coast, turn your brakes down and whatever. Whereas most plastic tracks, the corners tend to be tighter. I tend to drive on the nose, so you sort of brake late and bang it out. So it's sort of lift and coast on wood, square on wood. On flexi tracks. You just have to adjust your car, your tires, and your trigger finger, basically.
Maybe, like you said, they're new, so maybe they just don't want to have to adjust their driving for different. Like, do they similarly complain about Scalextric versus slotted versus NSR cars? Or are they like, I only want to drive NSR cars on wood tracks kind of people?
No, they do only want to use NSR rubber on their wood track. They don't want to try out the rubber compound or other tire compounds. So I noticed that, but I just wanted to see if there was anything general about the snobbery of plastic. So
the big advantage is because every plastic track has its own corners, and they are all regulated, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, etc. And on a wooden track, you can go totally bananas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that people prefer wood over plastic. I mean, I like a wood track, better than most plastic tracks, but a well-designed plastic track can be pretty good too.
Jeremy?
Yeah.
Here's the answer to those guys that are bitching.
It's okay. I mean, they won't show up. That's no big deal. We got plenty of people to race. I was just curious if anybody else had run into that, but it just blew my mind when they told the guy, don't build that track, and he didn't. So
that was just dumb.
That seems dumb to me.
Greg, I've got an observation that goes totally away from all of this.
Okay.
It looks like one of Big Den's track marshals.
Oh, you're behind the times there. Go ahead, John.
A few years ago, the LA Times ran a series of articles on the quote unquote rebirth of slot cars. And it showed a bunch of guys that looked like this group that we have in front of us today, and
handsome. Gotcha.
Handsome and a little bit of gray, a lot of gray. And I was thinking about our RC flight clubs, how older and older and older they got. And it got me to thinking about our club and our group and everything. We're 50 and above, 60 and above, that kind of thing, all reliving our past and having a good time at it. And then I saw the videos that were coming out of, excuse me, the English Slot Car Festival that was just held. And I was amazed at the number of young people that were coming in. And I'm not just talking about little kids that were brought in by their parents to say, hey, look at this fun tour. I'm talking about teenagers who were getting off of video games and coming in and discovering slot cars and playing with them. And everywhere the camera turned, there was another pod of these kids playing. And it was incredible. And
well, the other thing too, John, is I think, racing in Europe is still part of the social fabric, unlike North America.
Right.
I mean, don't forget, it used to be like that here. I mean, the LA Times Grand Prix used to have 150,000 people for the race.
Right.
And that just doesn't happen anymore.
But I think the thing that I was seeing is that here were people trying something, kids, teenagers, trying something in 3D, not in video 2D, that they were really enjoying. And apparently NSR had a track, or was it Polycar, I forget which, had a track, and they didn't have any cars for it. Polycar. So the kids would go and buy a car and bring it to their track. And if you saw some of the video of this, they're 16, 17, 18-year-olds, I'm going like, now there were some young ones, yeah, but that may be the whole future as we do races to get, some of these kids, of course, they probably can beat us because they're better than we are, but it doesn't matter. It's just, I'm thinking about the whole hobby in the future and where it's going to go and stuff like that. I was really encouraged to see that in the English show.
But a lot of it too is just getting, to your point, John, just getting people to try it. Like when I've had like real racers over here who at first kind of poo-pooed it, and then you couldn't get the controller out of their hand.
Nobody out there doesn't like it. Once they actually try it, pretty much everybody likes it.
Yeah, I call it like, it's like sushi. You don't think it's going to be good, but it's so good.
Maybe not quite like sushi. Took me three times to like sushi, but I think one of the other differences for the UK as compared to the States is in the States, basically, once the fad died off, it was just the diehards. Whereas in the UK, they don't call them slot cars; they call them Scalextric. It's like Kleenex. It's a household thing. If you don't have a Scalextric in your house or attic, you're the weird one. Whereas in the States, what's a slot car? What's a Scalextric? So obviously the question is, how do we get the younger generation involved? And pretty much the only thing I've seen is the older generation bringing their kids into it. And if you're lucky, a friend of that kid gets
Right.
into it or whatever. But then if the parents, if the parent that brought the kid stops coming, the kid's gonna stop coming too, and just like pretty much all over the world, it's like you were saying, teenagers were there, and that's what surprised you the most. Well, in this country, teenager, if you're doing anything kid-like as a teenager, then you are shunned from social society. You are not a cool person. You can't play with toys again until you're an old man like us. So you are basically pressured to give up childish things and be a man or whatever the case.
But yet you look at the RC cars, you look at like Mini Zs and stuff like that, they're blooming here like incredible. And it's all ages. It's not just us old men. There's a lot of teenagers in it and everything. So.
Greg, how old are your kids now?
Well, they're now both in their 20s.
Okay.
Neither one of them race anymore.
That's what I was going to ask.
In America, all your hobby shops got tracks set up in them.
Not really.
No, I've never seen a track at a hobby store.
Well, yeah, it's an odd store. Ours does, but it's an anomaly.
Yeah,
My
that was pretty
grandkids-
common.
My kids and my grandkids love it. I mean, and they've started to where they were at a point where 2 years old, their parents are holding them, so they're standing on a stool racing the car, and they absolutely love it. And I've been doing it since I've been racing, but I've been racing since 1965, and I bring all the little kids from the neighborhood over, let them play. They just can't believe it. And then even when I have something done in my house, if a guy comes in to my garage, he'll see these striking LB. And they're just going, oh my God, I remember this. And it's like, it's just not as advertised.
Well, you know what, Russ, you bring up a really valid point. If you really want to expand the market, you got to get more people like us who experienced it as youngsters, because most people who did had an old Eldon set that never really worked that well.
Yep.
And then to see what is available now, just off the shelf, I'm sure most people aren't aware, and it would blow them away.
Yeah.
I think it's really a nice discussion. I was last week by a mini jet. They asked me to go to a mini jet race. 70% of them were youngsters. And if you think that hobby is cheap now and not difficult, because they really look like Formula One cars. When I was in that, because they asked me if I can build the HEB bench for them for the mini jets. I was looking further at that, and what I do in Asia. There's to me a 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that, but there are the same cars as 124 scales or something like that. And they're going bananas over there. And they're all the youngsters.
Oh yeah.
They drive on batteries,
yeah,
etc., etc.
And they go in a trough. They ride in a trough.
Yeah, they ride in a trough. Yeah, we call it slot cars.
Yeah.
And what are those called?
It's from Tamiya Mini 4.
Mini 4. Mini
Yeah,
4.
I've never seen that.
Well, yeah, in fact, Henri, they actually make 1/32 scale bodies that you can almost use to make a slot car.
Yeah, they're very similar to 132.
They're very similar to 1/32 scale, the bodies for the Tamiya racing.
Yeah, that's been around for
There
quite
were a lot of youngsters over there.
Oh yeah. Well, don't forget slot. Slot racing in Japan is also quite popular as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I have to change my domicile, and I have to go there.
Go to Japan, yeah.
Yeah, because Tamiya don't make nothing anymore.
I mean,
they reissued some of their 1/32 and 1/24 scale bodies for a little while. So they did do that, yeah. But my daughter sold a lot of cars over to Japan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So.
Oh no, there you go. Oh yeah. Please, John, show it. Yeah, beautiful, John. That's it. There you go.
You gotta turn off your virtual background to be able to show things like that. But yeah, those have been around for quite a while. I think the main issue obviously is exposure, and the problem, at least in the States, surprisingly, because we have so much room compared to other countries, is that every square inch of a retail outlet has to be selling product. They cannot afford to have tracks in there anymore. Every hobby shop that I used to that exists today, that existed 10 or 15 years ago, back then, did have a track or some kind of display to entice people to buy the things. But now, nope, you can't even square away 8.5. You can't even square away a 4x8 sheet of plywood for just a thing for somebody to play on occasionally. It's got to have product. You're losing money if you're not selling product out of every square inch of a store.
Well, lucky you got hobby shops over here. They're all closed up.
I mean, we're losing them, quite frequently as well over here. Most of them are mail order only. So if you've got a brick and mortar hobby store, it's no wonder they don't have space to show off a slot car thing. Big Dan, you had your hand up earlier and then you put it down and now you're putting it back up. I'm guessing you wanted to contribute.
Oh, sorry. John was just showing the mini Z thing, or not mini Z, the Tamiya thing again. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's about 1/32 scale. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a dyno too.
You got to use no background manipulation at all to show stuff off on your camera. No fuzzy background, no virtual background. Big Dan, what did you want to say?
Yeah, look, apologies. I dropped out before when I tried to play that video and share that. It just locked my whole system up. I couldn't even close my sticky notes program. Just on one of the last comments, this is a polycarbonate body, and it's designed on one of those little Tamiya 30-second scales called the Festa Jaune or something like that. I bought a couple of them about $16 each, so I'll probably make a brass chassis, which will make Dennis happy. So
that almost looks like the Fast and Furious Lycan.
Yeah, I don't know, John.
There are a lot of cool cars. I mean, I remember buying. I like futuristic cars, and that's what a lot of those mini 4-wheel drive cars are very futuristic.
Yeah, well, you don't have to pay any rights, right? No licensing.
No licensing, no royalties.
Yeah, but the other thing. The other thing I wanted to catch up on was just to show Henry was asking about plugs. So I've got up a web page with the comparison of different plugs. There's our Australian mains plug front in the center there compared to some of the others around the world. So it's a 3-pin plug. So if Henry needs to make something for somebody in Sydney, got an idea of what the plug looks like. For our slot
very much,
cars,
Big Dan.
mate. Oh yeah, okay, mate.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
right, Andy. Yeah, no problems at all, mate. For our slot cars, we use the tracks vary. Some have banana plugs, but for our local tracks and most of Tasmania, the earth pin is a round pin so that it can't accidentally be plugged into a mains outlet by a kid who doesn't want to. We obviously don't want people to get fried plugging something into a 240-volt outlet. But they are used in lighting applications, so that's where they came from. And the slot car scene has just adapted them for the purpose of safety steps. So yes, again, apologies for dropping out earlier on, but I wasn't being like a politician trying to avoid the difficult question. It was circumstances beyond my control.
Yeah, we figured it was the video froze your computer.
Yeah.
You are not drinking wine and eating cheese.
No. All right, Jim, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I'd mentioned before the new guide spacers from Slotting Plus. Here they are.
Okay.
So they're specific to each guide because obviously the face of the guide, some are a little bit shorter and some are a little bit longer than others. But this just came through on my Facebook page today. So apparently it's a new product from Slotting Plus. And I guess 0.2 and 0.1 millimeter height or thicknesses, and for various guides.
Are those laser cut steel, Jim?
I would think so.
Chemically etched.
I don't know. I don't know how they're made.
I think they're chemical etching.
Okay, because they make spacers, you know, like washers the same way, where you take them off a tree like this. So it's sure it's probably the same, but this just came across, and that's what I was referring to when I mentioned that the new sliding plus, instead of a washer, a full face spacer.
Yeah.
So in theory, less slop.
I can use it for my Ninko track because my wheels are a little bit high, so I can drop my my guide.
You can't drop the guide. This is to raise the guide.
Wouldn't that drop the guide?
Yeah.
Well,
You mean drop the guide, but
Drop
yeah, but it would
towards
raise
the
the
slide.
wheels.
Raise the wheels, drop the guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like any other washer. It's just a full flat base instead of just a round washer.
Right, because it's either raise the bridge or lower the water, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, it is.
That looks like a useful product.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for sharing.
Good stuff. Well, we're down to 10 minutes. I don't think it's worth bringing up the topic that I was thinking about. I don't think we can fit it in 10 minutes.
Well, maybe you should tell us what it was and let us think about it for next time.
All right. Well, think about the Thunderslot Mustang chassis. So they're one of the guys in the UK area, Udo Cuyo, I think he's in Spain, brought home one of them and put a bunch of pictures up. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can see what he shared. He did a bunch of measurements. So he's got the length, width, and height of the fully assembled and the weights and all kinds of measurements. But some of the stuff that I found especially interesting was he went, you know, shows us the inside of the body, shows us the underside of the chassis, shows us the top of the chassis. But he even went so far as to separate, he figured out you could easily put a chip in, but he even went so far as to separate the two parts of the chassis to make it clear how they go together, how they move relative to one another. Talked about the screws, and the body screws even come with the O-rings to be, you know, dampening for the body and to keep the screws from falling out. And then limitation screws for the motion and stuff. That looks like just the bee's knees, and I'm sure I'll order one. And of course, I was going to bring it up to find out what you, and sadly Chris is gone, but absolutely input from Dennis and Jim and anybody else who's been watching the Thunderslot Mustang. And how with this information, what are you thinking?
It looks like a great car. There's just nothing to run against it other than other Mustangs.
Yeah, it's gonna be class one maker.
I drove it 6 months ago.
It's a really nice looking chassis.
Yeah.
I drove it 6-7 months ago in the North Holland because there was a prototype over there.
Has anybody announced how soon it's going to be available?
No, I don't think that was mentioned. I don't think
the chassis looks good, but what's going on with the body? I see pictures of the body and it looks like something's wrong.
It's pretty low.
Yeah, they've made some concessions for
there.
I mean,
I've looked at that body too a whole bunch of times, and then gone and looked at pictures of Mustang GT350s, and I'm really waiting to see the thing in the flesh.
It looks
before
like
I decide whether it looks right or not.
Bowed in the front or in the middle. It's like it kind of has a weird.
It just looks wrong somewhere. The
Something's off.
proportions are not.
It also looks really wide.
Yeah,
It's very wide.
They do look.
Greg, is that motor
skin
skewed a
that-
little bit?
Yeah, that's their Sidewinder that's at like 3 or 4 degrees or whatever it is.
Yeah, it just looks like it's skewed just a little bit.
Yeah, slight angle winder.
And that's what NSR have been doing for their Sidewinders for a while. There's another good picture. I mean, I'm not a stickler for accuracy.
Doesn't look right.
Just obviously, as you said, there's washers on the body screws. So depending on where you have them, you can raise and lower the body.
Yeah, use them to raise the body. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care about being too accurate. Like people used to complain about the NSR Moslers. It didn't bother me because it handled so well.
Yeah, but, I mean,
But I just thought something's going on here. Like they missed something.
They'll probably sell the crap out of them though.
Oh,
They'll absolutely sell the crap out of them. There's enough people who aren't sticklers for accuracy, and they want a fast car that looks like a Mustang. You know,
So Greg, here's a product for you then. As long as we know this is coming out and they're going to sell the crap out of them, 3D printed bodies that are specifically designed to fit that chassis in other flavors like Camaro could be a big hit.
Yeah, look forward to somebody releasing those.
Greg,
Yeah,
no, that's way out of my skill range. Sorry. So, anybody else want to throw in, input on that? We still got 5 minutes to waste.
I had an off question.
Go ahead, Juan.
The plastic tracks you guys were talking about, are most of those? I know they're analog, but are they mostly 4-laners or?
Yeah, at least for us, it's 4-lane analog plastic.
Minimum 4 lanes. Does anyone go any bigger than 4 lanes? Plastic?
Not in my group, mainly because of the design limitations because you've only got, at least with Scalextric, you've only got 4 radiuses to start with. If you do more than 4 lanes, then no turn can ever be wider than the inside being an R2 or tighter than the outside being an R3. And if you do 8 lanes, then there's always going to be super tight inside lane turns.
Super tight outside, super wide outside,
yeah. So just doing 4 lanes enables you to use more variety. And that's why I don't mind 2-lane tracks, is because you get to use all of the variety to make a much more flowing track than the limitations imposed by but then there's Polycar that has 5 radiuses, and I think Galato's probably targeting more than 4 radiuses. So those other, those offer not only 10 lane options, but also 4 or 6 lanes with even more variety in your turn combinations and what you can do.
I got this Galato track available.
I have not seen it available yet. What were you going to say, John?
I got to drive on the Polycar track. I had heard about it, and I really liked it. It was obviously it's not like driving on wood. Wood is very special, but it was a very, very nice. I liked it better than my Carrera track. It was very nice.
Yeah, it's basically got the traction component of like Ninco.
Right.
But yeah, Mr. Underwood wanted to say something.
Did I?
Okay.
As I say, speaking to Giovanni, he is going to do, obviously, he's going to go down the Trans Am route, sort of American muscle cars, whatever you want to call it. So I think he said hopefully the next 2 years it'll have something to run against.
Yeah, so obviously Thunderslot isn't going to start a product line like that and then just stop it right there. They're going to have, a variety of cars for that with the same kind of chassis and stuff.
And I didn't see any racing liveries because that car was never really raced. That specific car was
That
never really
67,
raced.
68, no.
They ran the notch back. They did, and I did run a Shelby in the Trans Am. Not that it makes much difference, but
Well, the nice thing about having the Mustang that way, in most other classes, the Mustang is less competitive as opposed to the Camaros. I mean, most body shapes, in most classes, the body shape of the Camaro is more suitable for the racing for some reason. And the Mustangs are too high. And what they've done is they equalized it. So if they come out with a Camaro that's the same, at least they'll have balance fairly easy that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's more important than actual scale. If you have a perfectly scaled Mustang and a Camaro, and the Camaro wins all the time, nobody's going to buy it. It's just makes sense.
One of our clubs actually banned the Camaro from Trans Am because that's all you had to have one. So they banned the Camaro.
Yeah, you got to figure out other ways for BOP.
Yeah.
Well, we did, but it's hard.
tough.
You got to lower bodies and start building and a lot of things that people don't have.
It gets to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then once the other cars start winning, people with the Camaro start complaining.
And then they had to ban the
and then you're back to where you were.
And then the Camaro people say, well, why can't I trim my guidepost, posts, and why can't I?
Why can't lower it?
And then half won't ride on the plastic tracks. I know.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just like real racing again.
Bringing it back around.
And that's what we're doing. We're racing in miniature, and we're having fun talking about it. We're at the end of our 2 hours, so I'm going to hit the stop button and come and join a live show because it's more fun than watching it. And until then, Underway, bye. Bye.
Bye.